Stephen Warner. Stephen Warner on the Barton organ with, I have to say, probably the most dramatic opening music we've ever had. Thank you, Stephen. Appropriate. Very appropriate. Welcome, everyone, to the Penny Stamps Distinguished Speaker Series. My name is Christina Hamilton, the series director, and today we are beyond thrilled to present a master sculptor and truly a legend in our time, Christo. Yeah, Christo. And I have to tell you that I find all of you, the audience here today, to be particularly Christo savvy, as I have found out over this last couple of weeks with being inundated with stories and phone calls from people who wanted to make it here today. I think one of the penultimate ones was about a woman who last year went to Italy to see the Floating Piers, and she only had 24 hours to go from Detroit to see the Floating Piers in Italy and fly back. So that takes top, but we've got a lot of fans in the audience today. And I want to thank our essential friend and presenting partner today, the University of Michigan Museum of Art. Yes. Truly, hats off to our museum. They are so integral in realizing this moment, along with our supporting sponsor, the Weiser Center for Emerging Democracies, another incredible friend to this series. And of course, our faithful sponsor, Michigan Radio 91.7 FM. Today's program is also part of our bicentennial celebration at the University of Michigan, as it is presented on the occasion of the Museum of Art's Victors for Art, Michigan's Alumni Collectors Part 2, Abstraction, which is on view right now at the museum. And if you haven't seen it, you have until October 29th. And it includes one of Christo's drawings, The Gates. Oh dear, nothing interesting today. I did say that, Jared. Nothing interesting. Hopefully, I'm going to continue to give the instructions, and I just know that that's going to get sorted out. Right? So before we get started, I want to introduce, I want to welcome a special group that we have with us in the audience today. We have the Stamp School's Dean's Advisory Council. This council is here with us over the next few days. This is going to be simple, I hope.
Yeah, I do too.
Good grief. Ooh, chilling. The Dean's Advisory Council, I want to welcome them. This is a group that is here with us once a year to engage in advisory work at the Stamp School. And this group is comprised of alumni from the school who have embarked from here and found a successful creative path. So we honor their knowledge and appreciate their dedication and welcome them back here to help guide us. So thank you all for your time and your energy. Good sign, maybe? Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Is there something I need to hit on this computer, Rico? This only happens on days like this. I have 2 event announcements for you. Do you have a message for the president? If you do, you should attend Typing to the President with Cheryl Oring. This is at the Stamps Gallery, our new Stamps Gallery, which is around the corner. This is tomorrow from 5 to 7. You can join Cheryl Oring's interactive project, I Wish to Say, and dictate your own postcard to the President of the United States. This is part of the Vital Signs for a New America on view at the new Stamps Gallery through October 14th, and this is just around the corner on Division. And for all of our up-and-coming design students in the house, and for anyone else as well, by the way of a recent graduate from the Stamp School, Jordana Schrager, who's now working with designer Steve Madden, he and his team will be here at the Michigan Theater next week on Wednesday. They will be presenting, oh, fantastic. Thanks for hanging in there, everyone. Steve Madden, he's going to be here presenting a new documentary next Wednesday here at the Michigan Theater. He's going to be here in attendance. He is going to do a Q&A afterwards to answer your questions. And this event is free. And not only that, I've never heard of this, but the concession stand is going to be free too. So what's not to love? And then, of course, don't miss, join us right here. Next Thursday, we have Jennifer Daniel for our Penny Stamps event, graphic designer and Google creative director. Now, very important information for everyone here today. Christo is going to give us a talk. He's going to show us a bunch of images, but most importantly, he wants to engage with you in a dialogue. So we're going to have a dedicated time for question and answer. We have microphones right here at this side of the stage, and there is another one on that side of the stage. In order to line up for Q&A, I'm asking that people coming to this microphone line up against the wall on this side, and on that wall on that side for that microphone. If you're in the balcony, please come downstairs during the Q&A. So again, the Q&A, this dialogue is really the centerpiece of the event. So please prove me right and ask savvy questions. And now for an introduction specific to our guest today. Christo is a sculptor known for co-creating large-scale ephemeral environmental works worldwide with his longtime artistic partner and late wife, Jeanne-Claude. Over the span of his 60-year career, Christo and Jeanne-Claude have created many public works involving the exterior wrapping of buildings, museums, and public spaces in canvas, tarp, and other materials, such as the wrapping of the Reichstag in Berlin in 1995, which was epic on all accounts. Oil barrels have also featured prominently in the couple's work, selected for their sculptural effect and low cost. Their most recent US project, The Gates, completed in 2005, featured 7,503 rectangular arches draped in saffron fabric across New York City's Central Park. While many people speculate on the specific meaning of the work, throughout his career, Christo has shunned the idea that his creative work seeks to convey deeper meanings, insisting that he creates work to evoke a purely visceral, emotional response using visual aesthetic. However, he speaks of the public locations of the installations in decidedly democratic terms. Nobody can buy our projects. Nobody can sell tickets to experience our projects. Freedom is the enemy of possession, and possession is equal to permanence. That is why our projects cannot remain and must go away forever. Our projects are once in a lifetime and once upon a time. Those are Christo's words himself. Please welcome the master himself, Christo.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I will be very brief right away, please. We have little time. I try to articulate and speak slowly that you understand me. And I will share a few words before we go to the images. I always try to remember what Jeanne-Claude was saying in the lecture at that. She was always saying that myself and Jeanne-Claude were born on June 13, 1935, simultaneously, but by two different mothers. I met Jeanne-Claude in 1958 in Paris. We lived in Paris for 6 years, between 58 and 64. We immigrated to the United States. No, Jeanne-Claude said, we don't immigrate to the United States. We immigrated to Manhattan, New York City. We're living in the same place since 1964. By the way, I immigrated like a tourist visa, and I was 3 years illegal alien. Now to tell you what we'll do. There were images, a number of works we did for the last over 50 years. And after that, I will please be courageous to ask questions, and I answer all questions. But I will not talk about politics. Religion is certainly not about other artists. I talk about myself, my work, and anything you like to know about my work. Now we can put the lights down, and we start with presentation. Briefly, I give you some idea. For example, this project is done in 1969, called Rap Coast in Australia, near Sydney, Australia, when we have a high cliffs, 150 feet high cliffs to sandy beach area in September, October of 1969. In 1972, we did that huge orange curtain in the span of Brooklyn Bridge. It's 180 feet in the center, 360 feet on the main foundation, on August of 1972. Between 72 and 76, we worked on a project in Northern California. We built 5.5 meter, 18 feet tall fence running to Sonoma in Marin County for 40 miles and disappearing in the Pacific Ocean with a quarter of mile. You can see that little person standing there to see the height of the fence. In 1978, we did project in Kansas City, Missouri, Lewis Park and the Milkans, where they cover the 2.5 miles walkway with this yellow golden fabric. And actually in the autumn, when the leaves on the trees start to match the color of the fabric and the walkways. And in 1983, we finished the project, Surrounded Island. That is actually the biggest amount of fabric we use, with 6.5 million square feet of fabric to encircle 11 islands on Biscayne Bay, Florida, a 7 miles distance. Actually, the fabric was attached on the beach area, floating 200 feet on the surface of the water, ending with tunnel shell boom and anchor with 1,000 anchors in Marine Bay and Biscayne Bay on May of 1983. But all this project took a long time to realize. In 1975, we started working to wrapping the oldest bridge in Paris. Finally, we get permission in 1985 to wrap the bridge with this champagne color fabric in the over 500 years old bridge in Paris, crossing the east to the left bank. And the bridge was illuminated by the city of Paris. You will see here, and not by us because it's a historical landmark. And in 1991, we finished project we worked for 6 years called the Umbrellas, joint project for Japan and United States. There was 1,340 blue umbrellas in Japan and 1,760 yellow umbrellas in Southern California. Each umbrella was 20 feet tall, 29 feet diameter. There was the 16 miles in California, 12 miles in Japan, but we have a Sato River in Japan. We installed 90 umbrellas in Sato River. In 1990, each umbrella was in that open land. There was around Los Angeles County and Kern County. And in 1995, after 25 years working for getting permission for the Reichstag, actually we have 3 times refusal. Finally, we get permission, and we wrap the formers and today the Parliament of Germany, the Reichstag, with this heavy aluminum fabric, cold aluminum fabric, and 10 miles of rope. And you see where the Reichstag is situated near Brandenburg Gates, up there in the photograph. And in 1998, we wrapped 178 trees and park near Basel, Switzerland, the Royal Park. We have a sunny day. We have a winter, actually, this cold picture, and beautiful sunset. And in 2005, we finished the gates. Project we started in 1979 was refused by the city of New York, finally realized in 2005, we installed 7,503 gates and 23 miles walkway in Central Park. Each gate was 18 feet tall, but the width of the gates was changing with the width of the walkway. And this February, when they have a leafless tree, we're hoping to have a snow, and we have a snow. This is the southern part of the park, and you can show another pictures looking south Central Park to the southern part of Manhattan. Now, for many years also, I did a lot of work with oil barrels. Now, this is simple sculpture. I did it in late 50s, early 60s. That particular is second public installation in Paris called the Iron Curtain. A year before, in 1961, the Berlin Wall was built. This is our political response of the Iron Curtain. But it was when they stuck the barrels horizontally, created a geometric form called mastaba. You have 2 slanted sides. They are always 60 degrees because it's circular form, a truncated top. And this is how the project for mastaba developed. And late 60s, we tried to do smaller size mastaba between Galveston and Houston, but we never get permission. And in the early 70s, we started to work on the project, build a smaller mastaba in the sculptural park in Holland, but also we never get permission. And finally, In 1979, we arrived in a faraway country that we never know before, called United Arab Emirates, and proposed to build a mastaba for Abu Dhabi. And that is a scale model built in 1979. It's a structure who is not a pyramid. You have a two vertical wall. The vertical wall here involving 110,000 barrels, 500 feet tall. The vertical wall on the ground is 1,000 feet, and slanted wall, 60 degree, is 750 feet. Using that scale model, I do a lot of photomontage collage, one of them to give you the scale of the project. You can see now late 70s, early 80s, Jeanne-Claude and myself working in Abu Dhabi on the site for the location of the project, who is inland from the Gulf of Arabian Gulf, about 120 kilometers. And that project takes long process. It's the last time when Jeanne-Claude was with me in 2007 and the location of the project, where the project is not only the sculpture, it's also the older area of 16 square kilometers. This is the Arabian Gulf, and down there the location. And for that project, like all our other works, we need to involve many people. We're not engineers ourselves. Jeanne-Claude have a great idea to connect the toppers of the engineering school in the world. Here we're talking with a professor assistant of Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. Here we're talking professor assistant of Cambridge University, United Kingdom. Here we're talking professor assistant of Champaign, Illinois, United States University. And here talking with a professor Sasaki from Hussein University, Tokyo. And that is we bought the study of this professor, and we submitted this study to another big authority to advise us, who is the most extraordinary proposal. Actually, it's a proposal of Professor Sasaki, and have a great idea. Professor Sasaki proposed that entire project should be flattening. You see, this is the structure involving almost 3/4 of a mile, and instead to install these 410,000 barrels on vertical wall, installing them horizontally like a Byzantine mosaic. Actually, this shadow is 75 feet tall, 75 feet tall truss, bridge truss. And when all that 410,000 barrels were installed, all that is hydraulically will go up, and we show you how it happened. And in less than 10 days. Of course, that wall moved on the railroad tracks, hundreds of railroad tracks, to arrive in that situation. Now, this is the scope of the project. You have the Great Pyramid, you have the mastaba here. And here is without knowing, the footprint of the mastaba is the size of square of Bernini and Vatican. And this is with the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, the magnitude. After passing Jeanne-Claude away, we are now on the site of the project working very much with our engineers to orient the sunrise with the vertical wall of the mastaba, because that wall with the 110,000 color barrels is to receive the sun. And we also like to know the footprint of the mastaba. You see the flat pole, give you the footprint of the mastaba. Our little car is somewhere there. And now I will show you the height of the mastaba. It's a little balloon up there. That is the height of the project in that landscape. Now, to do this project, like tonight, we do countless presentations on university for the woman, for the man, on the United Arab Emirates, explaining to the many people how the project will be built, how the project will be installed. The next one. And here I'm presenting the project to the Sheikh Hamdan, the ruler, appointed ruler of that region by the Crown Prince. Now, this is one of the most recent drawings of the masters. Actually, you see color slide of images of preparatory study I do with my own hand, selling this study. We have money to pay for engineers, traveling, research, and many things. And in 1999, in Museum of Germany, this is inside Museum of Germany. You have a great atrium, and you can go to the elevator. We installed 13,000 oil barrels. This inside installation, seeing from above. And now we come to the story of Floating Pier. For the last 50 years, we designed projects for particular sites, like the gates was designed for Central Park, the Reichstag project was for the Reichstag, but their project, we have a concept, like the running fence, or valley curtain, or the umbrellas, and we need to find site for this project. And the story of Floating Pier is exactly the same type of work. We like to make projects that you can walk on the water, basically pontoon, covered with fabric. And the first proposal for floating pier was in 1970. And the area of Rio de la Plata Delta in Argentina, we never get permission. Later, in 96, 97, we have a lot of friends in Japan. We try to do it in Tokyo Bay, in the area of Daiba and Tokyo Bay. We never get permission. And in 1984, 2014, I was just to become 8 years old, and I talked to my nephew, he's here, Vladimir, that I will become 8 years old, that I like to do something that possibly can be done while I'm still alive. And we told the story of the floating pier, and we tried to scouting site for the floating pier. Living in Paris between 1950, living in Paris between 1950 and 1964, we spent a lot of time in Italy. We did public projects in Italy, for example, the wrapped fountains on Piazza Mercato and Spoleto. We did the wrapped monument of Vittorio Emanuele in Milano in 1970, and Leonardo da Vinci. In 1974, we wrapped the Marcus Aurelius Wall, the end of Via Veneto and Rome. And hoping now that returning Italy, looking for quiet water, there are many lakes in northern Italy. Some of you probably know, like Lago Maggiore, Lago di Como, Lago di Garda, but one lake called Lago Iseo, on the right side here, have an unusual situation. And that lake, it have a mountain, very tall mountain, 1,500 feet tall mountain, actually top of the mountain, because all these lakes, they're not normal lakes, they're glacier. The deep water here from the mainland to the island is 300 feet. On the other side, the water is 700 feet depth, because it's the canyon of the mountains of Alpine when the glacier is melting. And that island of Monte Isola, mountain, there are 2,000 people live, and they have no bridge. They go by boat to the mainland, and for first time, for 60 days, they can walk on the water. This is early sketches that we propose to do to create that floating piers, and you can walk. We're using 3 kilometers, about 1.5 miles of floating piers, and about 1 mile of pedestrian street. Here we're presenting the project to the president of the lake, Mr. Faccanoni. Here we're presenting the project. This is the island, little island, who is framed also with floating pier. Here we're presenting, this is how the island will be situated, connecting the remaining 3 floating piers. This is a town of Sulzano, who is the mainland, east coast of the lake. I introduced the project to the mayor of Sulzano, Paola Pezzotti, who was not speaking English, but we have a good translator. After 15-minute conversation, say, approvato. Here to the mayor of Monte Isola, Fiorello Turla, he also say approvato. And from there, this is the little village of the Monte Isola, Peschiera. And from there, we start to moving for the fabrication of the project. Fortunately, we don't did project in early years because the technology for piers and marina was much more developed later. And that is a very clever invention by Canadian engineers who basically built pier by floating cubes, very small, 50 by 50 centimeter. But for all our project, we cannot choose the color material in the studio in Manhattan. We need to do always life-size stays on 1-to-1 scale, small section of the project. This is life-size stays done in the lake near Danish-German border. And here now we have engineers, Italian engineers, to start developing the concept of the project. After the life-size stays, we move to the very much more moving water and the Black Sea in the coast of Bulgaria, when we need to have the force of the wind in the cubes, in the anchors, huge information we need before we start to get the permission. For example, one back is 1 ton supported by 4 cubes. All that was done in research. Our team with the boat and our cinematographer. But because the piers have angles, we need to fabricate a special connection of these piers. Another important part is that the piers, they're not flat horizontally. They're sloping down 2.5 meters each side like a beach. And you can see how beautiful work later when we install our yellow fabric. Now, all that happened that the entire project was built underwater part by over 200,000 cubes, need to be fabricated by 4 factories simultaneously in northern Italy. This is the diagram of the cubes, how they have an ear, they're connected by these big pins, they screw, And to do that, we need to fabricate it for 3 kilometers of floating pier. We need to fabricate a 100-meter long floating pier. Around the clock almost, we have a great workers coming from Bulgaria, flying by plane. They're screwing together these cubes non-stop. But these piers, to be having this exact dimension, aesthetical, not stay like that, we need to install over 200 anchors, 5 tons each, down there in the water. And you have a diagonal anchors, you have a counterweight anchors to control the straight line of pier. And how these anchors of 5 tons was transported by bags, by air bags. In the niche of these red bags is 5 tons anchors float. And when they arrive in the right position, they are deflated and the anchor go down. We have a professional deep water divers go down, you see them, and they connected the anchors with the cable from above. All that was done in a matter of less than half a year. Meanwhile, we have a production of fabrication, the fabric, recruiting the workers. Entire project was installed by the professional workers, including, of course, the non-skilled workers who was employed in the end. Now headquarters, you have the parking area. For example, each of these is 100-meter long floating pier. From there, they're transported to the site and start to be connected with the anchors. The next, and by the boat, this is like a 100-meter long, 16-meter wide pier is transported. They start to frame the island, the little island. All that project is done, all that work is done to connecting each section of from with the next and creating those anchors, very intricate anchors. And we transport by helicopter all the hardware. Before putting our yellow fabric, we have this felt, 1 centimeter thick felt, who is installed over the cubes. Much of that work was flown by helicopter. And finally, 600 non-skilled workers unfurling the fabric. And we see now the satellite picture when the project was installed before is open for the public. And because the pier, they are not flat horizontally, have this beach area, the edge of the fabric is always reddish because it's wet. This is why we have over 1,250,000 people walk, and the piers, and here have in the street of Sultano in Monte Isola, and something very important you should look what is here. You don't have. This is 300 meter deep, 300 feet deep water. There are no rail. There are no rail. This is you walk on the edge of the water is 300 feet depth. And this is why the red color of the fabric is like a beach, and the people are avoiding to walk on the red color. And we have a light in the evening. Our workers arriving, installing specially fabricated light system by California company to light the project during the evening. And around the clock, we have each 6 hours shifting people, our monitors working on the site. We, like all our projects, we're cutting fabric samples that is given to the public. Basically, the biggest work in the project is to move the traffic of the people from the inland, from the pedestrian street, to the floating pier. Now, we go and we open the lights and we start with a question. Thank you very much. Now, we have organizations how to ask the question here. Feel courageous. Courageous, I don't see anybody. My idea, I'm really love to have people. Okay, yes.
Is it
yes.
working? Oh.
Okay.
Hi. Okay. How do you pay for your projects?
How I pick my project.
How do you pay for your project?
I pay for my project, but talk close to the microphone that people to hear. How I pay for my project. Very simply, I say briefly during the presentation of images. I'm working like artist. I do works of art with my own hand. I live in the same buildings for over 50 years, the same place. My studio is always since 1964. I do not have assistant. Everything is done by myself. Not have assistant. Everything is done myself. I work in a very, not big loft, industrial place, built in 19th century, middle of 19th century building, and I use the top floor of my studio. I do not have a stool in my studio. I'm standing and walking 15, 16 hours a day. I don't like to sit. And I work on many things simultaneously, small things, big things, like that. And like any artist, they're commodity, and capitalist society is called works of art, and they have value. We sell this work of art to collectors, dealers, and museums around the world, and with that we pay making projects. But I can elaborate a technique, how it's organized later. If somebody asks us, how is the mechanics, I will explain that. Now, if you like to have more, I will explain it. But for the moment, like any other artist, the money comes from the works of art. I have no stocks, no bond, no inheritance, no anything. Only thing I have worked. But of course, I was lucky, Jeanne-Claude and myself, that very young, we don't have exclusive representative to our art. And we are the biggest collector of art. Nobody in the world has so much work of art like us. And that is probably the greatest capital we have. Other question?
I have a question.
Yes.
So after the project is done, what do you do with the material, like the fabric and
Now, I was grown in Bulgaria during the communist regime, and I was Marxist educated at that time. You know, and all the project, I used the capitalist system to the very end. Give you an example, I cannot in general. Now, to install this 7,503 gates in Central Park, stay vertically, we need to buy 5,000 tons of steel base. You don't know what is 5,000 steel. It's 2/3 of the steel of Eiffel Tower. Now, we bought that steel from Philadelphia company. We chop it in bases. And before even the gates was exhibited, we sold that steel to the Chinese who need so much steel to build skyscraper. Basically, all the hardware is sold to the industrial use, what is fabricated. This is the aluminum, there are many, many valuable materials. They're all recycled immediately because they're used for very short time and they're perfect, valuable hardware materials. The fabric is the same thing, the rope, except the most expensive part, like everything in the world, no, is the labor. That labor cannot recycle. You go to the payroll of the workers. Everybody's pay. You know, even the non-skilled workers, they pay because we need to have a workman compensation insurance. You know, everybody is paying the project.
My question kind of follows that one. Like, how much labor do each of your projects take to put up? Like, how many people?
First, you know, let's explain it. Each project come to the scope how this project they're done. Many years ago, actually, my lawyer who invited me here, Scott Hodges, that I met in the mid-60s, says that we need to create company, not non-profit company, the corporation who is created to build our project, to sell our original works of art, and to buy back our original works of art. We continuously buy the secondary market, and the auction works that we need, orderly works for a different period. Now that corporation is the holding company called CVG Corporation. My initial, Christo is a New York State and Delaware company. That holding company who is created to build this project. And each time we build project in Germany, the German company, who is the subsidiary of CVG Corporation. That company only is created to rob the Reichstag. And the money comes from the sale of original works of CVG Corporation to collectors, dealers, and museums around the world. There was the French company for the Paris project. There was a Japanese for the Blue Umbrella, Yellow Umbrella Californian company. They're all different corporations for each project. They have their project director, chief engineer, lawyers, huge amount of operation, and that costs a lot of money because, like everything, one of the most difficult parts of this project is to get permission. And they're involving permission because you don't know how it's difficult to get permission because Everything in the world is owned by somebody. There are no 1 square kilometer in the world don't belong to somebody. And we pay rent, we pay rent. We pay $3 million rent to New York City to have the park for 3 months. But when we pay rent, that we have absolute control of Central Park. Nobody can make films, nobody can use the park except to take their dogs, everyday life, but they cannot use our image for something. In each our project, they copyright and trademark. Nobody can use for commercial purpose anything. All that is how the project get developed through the permitting process. Sometimes it's very complex. We need to have a government involving, like a case of the Reichstag. The final decision was done by the nation, by the debate and the parliament and the nation and the roll call vote to wrap the Reichstag or no. And this is why this is one of the most expensive projects. Part of the labor is that tremendous permitting process, which is very expensive, because in the last over 50 years, we realized 22 projects, but we failed to get permission for 36 projects. Some project was realized, was refused, and we don't like to do it anymore. And some project was refused once, twice, 3 times, like the Central Park, like the Reichstag, and we still like to do it. And some project was refused, and we don't like to do it. Basically, and this process, how one project stay in our heart, is very personal relation. Like the Central Park stay for 26 years, the gay stay for the Reichstag for there for over 25 years. They're all different. But they also big luck, like for example, the Floating Pier project, who was probably never done project so short time, less than 2 years. This is a miracle that we succeeded to have, but also their chance, because the president of the lake is the man, Mr. Fakanoni, who was very keen on art, very involved, and relative Nabokov was very understandable what art is. Other question, the young lady.
So all of your projects have been temporary so far, and the mastaba, isn't that permanent?
Of course, but there are many permanent things. I hope you understand. I need to sell permanent things to build projects. And my drawings, they're permanent. I have a sculptural barrels permanent. There are many permanent. I don't do only temporary project. I need to have commodity to sell, to have money, and build this project. Yep. But if there's mastaba, he will be the biggest, if it happens, the biggest sculpture ever was done. But with permanent, like sculptural barrels, I have a museum in Holland and Germany. Okay. Thank you.
So when you begin your process of coming up with an idea for a piece, when it's interactive, do you focus more on what the project looks like or how the audience will interact with it? And what is the most important thing for you when designing something that's interactive? Because it's an experience, not just a piece.
The project, they are not designed to be interactive. The project, what they are. Now I try to explain you. Starting with the classical painting. Classical painting is like that wall of flat surface, and it's flat. Can be figurative, can be abstract, is the flat. The sculpture is like that microphone, very skinny, like Giacometti, But you need to go around. Sometimes the sculpture can be very big, like a calder, and you walk inside. But all that shape is designed by the artist. Some today, like installation artists, install television sets, some object, but all this or arrangement is designed by the artist. There another space who never be thinking about. The moment you walk out of your home and walk on the sidewalk, somebody designed the sidewalk. You cross the street, red and green light, somebody designed this crossing restriction. Basically, 24 hours around the clock, we're funneled to highly regulated space. We don't even thinking about that, but we're funneled to that space. Designed by the architect, urban planner, jurisdiction, users, many things. And always Jeanne-Claude was saying, we like to borrow that space and create gentle disturbance in for a few days. Basically, the borrowing that space, we inherit everything who is inherent in that space to become work of art. We don't do the project to be enter the action. There, we inherit that dynamic and the public space. Who do not have in a museum, you don't have in a garden, you don't have in a private collection. And of course, this is why our project, they're very close and behind the visual arts. They're close to architecture and urban planning. For example, the first writer, Or New York Times sent for the Reichstag project was not art critic, was the architectural critic.
Yeah.
Understand? Because this is, you should read this project to understand what's there. And when I'm saying what there, they're not images. I will show you here images about Floating Pier or drawings about Floating Pier. But for 16 days, and Lake here was the Floating Pier, meaning like the 3-kilometer walking in the water, 3 kilometers walking in water, to feel the wet, the wind, the real things, not virtual reality, not flat screen, the real things. The project deals absolutely with the real things. And this is why this project, they evolve in that space. They are not done to interact. It's basically, they absorb all the energy of the space of the people living everyday life. We don't invite the people to walk in Central Park. They walk anywhere in Central Park. No, really, this is all. They know performance. They know anything. They're absolutely very normal access. But the project, in the very end, they deal with that we cannot know what is the project. They're bigger than our imagination. I give you many examples. I cannot, even I have no time. Only writers need to do that. I have no time. For example, the Umbrellas project was designed to be work of art in 2 parts, like a classical painting, have 2 canvases, and they tell diptych. And they complement it in some way. In 1991, we're involving the 2 richest countries in the world, United States and Japan, with tremendous similarity, a lot of difference. And of course, we used the Southern California, who is tilted to Japan, Pacific end, not the East Coast, tilted to Europe. We use part of Southern California, where a very dry landscape, into the wet landscape in Japan. And the umbrellas were designed like houses without walls. They're a 2-story house. They were positioned near gas station, near church and temple, around the street. The people sitting. They were sitting platform designed to be seated, picnicking on the umbrellas. And something happened I never think about. And California, people coming, picnicking on the umbrella, they put their blanket, they staying there 2-3 hours. And Japan also do that something. But the Japanese people remove their shoes. Because on the floor in Japan, you don't walk with the shoes. This is, I tell you, the project absorbs so many things that I cannot even thinking I have no time to predict. And this is why they carry that energy, who is much more than my imagination. Other question?
Thank you. Thank you.
I was wondering, with the large amount of materials that come out of your projects, have you ever followed them to another location to what somebody has built out of them? Or is there like a small country somewhere where everybody's wearing an orange shirt?
No, we don't know what's happened with the steel on the umbrella and the gates in Central Park. They was melted somewhere in the skyscraper in China, I don't know. No, this is, and of course, there are very practical reasons, materials recycled for many uses, but I'm not interested in that. Yeah.
I was very little when I saw your gates in Central Park. I was wondering, why do you like the color orange?
It's the saffron. It's the saffron. Not orange. I tell you, like everything, like I showed you a life-size test for the Floating Pier project. The gates also was life-size tests. Actually, several life-size tests, and this is 26 years. And we more and more, with all the time, was thinking to do the project during the winter, because we like to have a leafless tree, because during the summertime, Central Park is like forest. Basically, you have this silver gray color of the tree. Through the tree, you can see the skyline of Manhattan, the buildings. And why are they gates? I can tell you, they're not, all this form, they're not designed like that. You know, the Central Park is an entirely man-made park, designed by Olmsted and Vaux. You have a stone wall, and you enter to park by opening called gates. Actually, some of the gates have name. In some way, Olmsted tried to build real gates to close the park on the night and nobody go inside. They never allowed him to do that. And what we did it, because the gates is like a gate, but Central Park is framed by 100 city blocks, very rectangular shape. This is why rectangular pattern of the gates reflect the footprint of the skyline of Manhattan. But the fabric attached only to the upper part, moving in all directions, reflect the organic shape of the leafless branches of the tree. That contrast between organic and geometry is body in the structure of the gates, who varied with the width of the gates. It basically created some like a control space that you need to walk underneath, and of course provocative, because tall person can touch the fabric, move the fabric with your hand. All that is part of why we don't did arches, we did gates. This is why the fabric come down, freely moving, to create that teasing, very sensual relation with you, that space under the gates, like a corridor. The color come because we did life-size secret. In the northwest of the United States, an area, and Washington State, and Cascade Mountains, we built real walkway on cement, and we built gates, and we have different hue. It was always beige or ochre hue, but we find it extremely beautiful that when the snow is coming, to have this wet snow became even the saffron color became very deep red, actually, not only yellow. And I remember vividly, I did some sketches, preparatory study for the gates in winter. Jeanne-Claude was always saying, we're not sure that we have winter, but we have twice snow, incredible snow come on these 16 days of the gates. Yes?
So with works like the Floating Pier and when you cover the islands in plastic, do you think about like...
Not plastic, it's fabric.
It's fabric, sorry.
Okay. We do not cover the island, we surround them.
You surround them.
The water was floating, fabric was floating in the water, was not covering the islands.
Okay.
I hope you understand that shape is not existing, that is water. And the pink fabric was creating that form, but that form is not the island. The island is much smaller. Okay.
So the point is they're kind of intrusive to the environment and the nature and the wildlife
what's happening,
around
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
So what's
I
the
can tell you
impact
very good anecdote. You know, to get the permission is very complex. And that area in Biscayne Bay, you have a famous manatee, you know, that sea cow who need to swim and to take oxygen. And now the environmentalists and the government of Florida was very eager to know how this sea cow were reacting with the pink fabric. Now, I think the fabric basically is a mesh which is woven. You know, not film, not a film. It's basically woven, very loose mesh, especially woven that when it's rainy, that the water can go through the fabric, not deposit on that film. This is why it's very different. The fabric is something woven. It can be artificial fiber or cotton and nylon, and the film is like opaque film. Now, in the professor of marine biology in Orlando did a test, and he covered aquarium in Orlando and put manatee. You see the manatee was swimming in our pink fabric. After that, he tried to find how manatee behave with open, not pink fabric, and pink fabric, and he observed very, very strange things. The manatee preferred to stay under the pink fabric, and during that time, they developed mating instinct in the pink fabric. This is how we know by the professors.
I'm a graduate of U of M, and I actually was lucky enough when I went abroad to go to the Floating Piers, and I walked on them, and I actually saw you on a boat, like sailing by while I was there. So I have two questions for you. One, how often did you spend, like, because it was only a couple weeks that it was there, so.
16 days.
Yeah, so why only 16 days, and also how much time were you there? Because I did get a chance to see you.
For all our projects, when they exhibited, I like to be all the time there, very natural. But you also understand, the exhibition time of the project is the most draining time. We own the site, and we're responsible for everything.
Okay.
The service around the cloth, the cleaning, everything, security, all that things. And when the people ask us, when Jeanne-Claude was still alive, but after 16 days, too short, I think is enough. We have so much relief that it's over. But I tell you, that is the most expensive part of the project, because labor is horrendous.
Well, it changed my life, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello. We can see how your preparatory sketches start to inform your larger installations, and it involves drawing and mark making process. And I was wondering how you think about mark making and drawing on a relatively small scale, and how that translates to your large-scale installations with mark making and fabric.
All these drawings, first, we never have idea how the project will look. The very early drawings very clumsy. They're only idea, and how the project will look is crystallized to the permitting process, to the engineering of the project, on discovering what is the project. It would be wrong to tell you, in 1972, when we started the Reichstag, we know how the Reichstag looked. It's a long process of getting permission, the same long process, visualize how the work will look, because they're unique. We never, of course, it's very easy to do another gates or another umbrellas, but we never did before. It's not only engineering-wise, also aesthetically. And that process is what we like very much, because it's so revealing, it's so complex, it's so exciting, it's not banal, it's not a routine. And I draw very much like a normal architect or artist, many sketches. I use photography, draw photography, but I don't use any computer images. I all do with my own hand. I do not know how to drive. I never have driver license. I do not like to talk on the telephone. I like to see the real people. I don't know how to open the computer when Vladimir lives on Saturday, and I have no idea going to that virtual world, because I do not like virtual things. I like the real things. And this is something I love tremendously. I love to walk in the sun, to be wet, to have a cold, to have a wind, but I enjoy it physically. This is not because I must do that. I need to do that. And this is why the flat image for me is totally nothing. No any sense for me. I know all people, they hypnotize an airport looking thing. This is not meaning anything for me. I like to watch how the plane move up and down and got the serial things. This is why I do a very simple process. I draw, I make collages, I do scale models, very done with my own hand, very simple. Now, we sell this material, these original works, to collector dealers. We kept a great number for ourselves. And one important thing to know, because this project, they're temporary, we are very conscious of archives of the project. And each of our temporary works of art have a huge documentation exhibition. They are not only original works, number of, like 30, 50, 60, 80 original works, but also how the project progressing through the years, the films, photographs, documents, and we own this exhibition, and often this exhibition we exhibited to help to get permission. For example, we have a very difficult time to get the Reichstag permission. The Pont Neuf documentation exhibition building, doing urban project in Paris, was exhibited in the museum in Germany to make the politicians see how one urban project was happened. But the same way, I'm not too young, and Jeanne-Claude already before she passed away, we need to find home for this exhibition. For example, we sold the running fence documentation exhibition to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. We have the Reichstag documentation exhibition and German Foundation in Berlin. Basically, this exhibition, they are huge archive material, films, photographs, documents, components of the project. We're conscious that to have really historically reference to the project. This is something we do also part of the project. Other question? Okay.
Hi.
We have time? Okay, we have, because we tell them. They give us the last question.
Hi. So obviously there's a lot of like planning and sketching that goes into your work, but to an extent you don't really know what it's going to look like until it actually is like coming forth. Have you ever made a project where it came forth and it's all done and you found yourself a little bit dissatisfied with it?
The question is never, because
No.
because I do not know. I don't know how the project look. Understand me? We do not know. Of course, through the life size test, they're not only 1 or 2 or 3. We improve many parts of the project. But I was telling, we cannot make this decision in the studio. It is the very tedious project of finding the right material, right proportion, many things, the right fabric, all kind of things to find it. For example, for the Reichstag project, it was so difficult to find the heavy fabric. And I remember we tried to find it some place, and there was medieval tower built in the 11th century in the German castle that nobody know that we have fabricated in different levels, different type, that we can throw that fabric over that huge tower to see how it look on rainy day and sunny days, how thick is woven, how loosely is woven. All these things cannot be decided in the studio like a little pieces. You need to go to this very long process. And also need to find engineers, many, many things to work together, put together. And I always saying the most difficult part is to put that team together. That is the, sometimes need to fire people, we hire wrong people. They're not smooth moving. And this is why we like to do, because they're all unique. We will never do another floating pier. We never build another fence. We never wrap another parliament. They're all, and we're very excited with something we do not know how to do.
I don't know whether you'll like this question, but whether you will like this question. But I was wondering what it was like to work with Jeanne-Claude and with your wife.
Yes.
And if there was a story to how you met.
How I met Jeanne-Claude? I was very young. We make love and we like each other. That's all. No other things. No, we were very young.
And what was it like to work with her?
She was very critical. Oh, yeah. I miss that. She was argumentative, very critical. You know, we still today, we need to be very critical. We cannot satisfy ourselves, do that because I say, I do not know. And I always try to say, what Jeanne-Claude we say, because she's argumentative, should be done that way or other way. That's just the thing.
Hi, my name is Dee. It's so great to meet you and to have you talk here. I have two questions. One, I am graduating this year from the art school, and you said that you don't have an assistant. I don't have any post-grad plans, so if you're looking for an assistant, I would love to be your assistant. Okay, second question.
I do not have assistant, you don't understand? No. When we do the project, we have enormous amount of professional people working, but there's no assistant in my studio. I'm in my studio alone, that's all.
Sure.
But the engineers and all, they have all kind of professional people involved.
And then my second question is, right now I feel like a lot of my classmates are doing their senior projects, and it can get really draining. So do you have any tips for how you make yourself keep creating even when you feel like the work you're making isn't good, and like even when you're tired? Yeah.
I can tell you, I never go to jury. Only on civil jury, when they ask me, I go. I cannot jury art exhibition or paint. I do not know. I almost unthinkable to jury somebody why you should do something. Only you cannot what you like to do. The biggest issue, only you will know what you like to do. They are very, you know, to be artist is not a profession. It's existing. You're artist all the time. Wake up your artist. It's not like a job. You need to build something in yourself that you cannot live without that. But that is something only you can do. It's impossible to give advice what you should do. What type of art or what type of like to do is impossible. But you should have this excitement, and I was blessed. I have a great parents. I study art after school at the age of 6, 7, private lesson of painting, architecture, sculpture, with going to real painter, to real sculpture. And since age of 6 or 7, I try to be artist. I have that, nothing else. But actually, I can tell you, I go to the very academic school in Bulgaria that time I live, and to be an artist, I don't know how they're teaching art here. You study 8 years. The first 4 years, you study architecture, painting, sculpture, decorative art. Even I have 2 semesters of medicine, dissection human body. It's like the 19th century art. And after 4th year, you decided to be what you like to be painter or sculpture or the decorative art stuff. Now, I escaped from communist here in my 4th year. You see, I am not still decided what I am. Understand?
Hello. I have a confession. I don't understand the meaning of your work, really. Yeah, because when I first saw the picture of gates in Central Park, I was impressed. But I thought, wow, why somebody would get in so much trouble just to do something so temporary, you know? And it's beautiful, but for me, it's essential to find the meaning. But you partly actually already answered my question. I understand that you do something that you want to live, something that you need to live. Yeah, but maybe there is some purpose, like some in your whole.
I know something. You know, all our project is totally irrational, totally useless. The world can live without this project. Nobody needs this project. Only myself and some friends that we need it desperately would like to do it. That's all. I don't like to say any more about that. I like air and water to do this project. I have this unstoppable urge with no reason. I understand nobody needs them. That's all.
So my question kind of goes off of hers slightly. I was wondering, for not the meaning, but the scale, what first attracted you to work at such an enormous scale?
That scale is only their useless work. They're much bigger scale we build. We build airports, highway, bridges, skyscraper, enormous, bigger, much bigger than anything I try to do. But they're only big because they're totally useless. This is why that scale addressed to all that freedom of creativity. They're not done to make people live better, travel better, comfortable. No, they're done totally useless. That is the level of us human make her human.
I was wondering, does fabric hold a particular symbolism in your work? And also, has your shift from sort of wrapping cultural buildings to working with like natural spaces, does that show something in your thinking?
That is all. There are other things I explained about, but the fabric is the principal material to translate this nomadic character of the project. You know, there are a lot of material installed, solid materials of the project. But suddenly, the fabric is in furl, a matter of hours, like Valley Curtain was opened in less than 15 minutes. And the changes is so immediate, so grasp. In the same way, is very essential, very provocative. I can tell you, for example, when we were wrapping the Reichstag, we have a see-through working fence that the people can see the sky, the alpinists, who come to wrap. There was no scaffolding. There was the rock climbers really wrap the building coming down. And after that, we removed the see-through fence, and the people was walking, and they was pushing the fabric, touching the fabric of the Reichstag. I don't see any people in Chicago touching the buildings. But that is the story. Understand me? This project developed so many dimensions that it's impossible to connect it, and this is why we did this. We're doing this project for that, and this is the principle. The fabric is used like a second skin in the project. In the same way, is something is so free. It's like a nomadic tribe. They can build the entire settlement. After a week, they're gone.
Where do you find inspiration for your work?
Inspiration? Their location, but actually you should see how much our work move. For example, there are a lot of water in our works. When the water meets the earth, you can see the project in Australia, you see the project of running fence going to the ocean, you can see the project of the pond nerve. You know, there are a lot of play of fluidity of the water with sturdiness of the earth. And that rencontre, or that motion, is translated. All these parts, there are many elements of, it can appear in our project and many levels, and you can feel the closeness, how they're related in some way. Not formally, but the way how deal with this issue. Yes.
Hi, a woman in the back asked me to ask this question. She was wondering if the red railings, like where you said it was like the beach where the water kind of like.
I don't understand what the question.
No, her question is if the red railings on like the floating walkways were planned. Like the yellow fabric, yeah, how it turned red because it was like hit by the water. She was wondering if that was like an anticipated thing or if that was like just an element of surprise that you just like went with.
Still don't understand the question. What's the question? We try to do already floating pier,
Yeah,
people walking in the fabric.
Was like the, I don't know, she just handed me this question to ask you, but is the, I swear, I promise.
Tell me,
She's asking, so like on the yellow fabric, the walkway.
Is yellow fabric?
No. Why, like, where it turns red on the edges, was that like something that you planned or was that something that just happened? Yeah, had you anticipated it or was it like an
Should
element?
understand one important thing. The project is not the yellow fabric. The project is not the blue fabric. The project is not the golden fabric or silver fabric. The project is everything. It's not like a normal work of art. One umbrella is not a work of art. Two umbrellas is not a work of art. 3,400 umbrella and the 16 miles, 12 miles space in Japan and the rice field and the water and the farmhouse and the temple and the tree. All that is work of art. It's not normal object. The things is not a work of art. In the same thing, the running fence, one fence is not the work of art. You should see all that totally. The same thing with the floating pier. The floating pier is nothing. The little cube in the water is not the work of art. The connection, the floating pier with the mainland, the water, a different location, with the topography of the land, all that, you see, that is all the project, not one line or two lines. But of course, we deal with that senses that from the walking in the street of these medieval towns is suddenly walking on some surface who, fortunately, we did floating pier only now, not before, because that technology was not invented yet. Because actually, when you walk on the floating pier, it's not like to be on the boat. It's not like to be on the barge. Actually, literally, you will feel the waves coming on your feet. And you live by the wave like the real something moving in. Why? Because the entire project was built like woven fabric. Understand me? They crisscrossing each other. They're very small section, and they created like the cloth. Cloth move because it's woven. Is the film is not moved like that. That technique is applied in the structure of these cubes. And this is why I have this enormous quality that's impossible to have it 30 years ago when we were planning in the early years. All that is part. And this is why we use it's not like a carpet. You have a folds, that the folds move with the movement of the people. They move from one direction. They move with the waves. It's not like a staying steady surface. And they're wet and dry, all this part. And all that is the work of art, not the fabric, little fabric on the floor. Okay?
Thank you.
Hi, Christo. Hi. I have two questions. One is, how do you choose the locations for your projects? And two is, do you still have a kind of connection to Bulgaria, or do you go visit sometimes still?
The second question, you know, I'm born in Bulgaria, but I'm half Macedonian, half a quarter Bulgarian, and quarter Czech. And I escaped from Czechoslovakia during the Hungarian Revolution in 1956 to the West. I've never been back to Bulgaria. Now, first question was what?
Was how do you choose the locations of the project?
No, the location is, all the sites of our project, they're chosen by area of the people like our art. Meaning that what? To do this project, I need to have money to buy my preparatory drawings, and with that money, I can build this project. I don't sell, I have no one single collector in China. I will never do project in China. I have no one single, very few collectors in South America. I have no interest to do the project. Basically, is naturally, the project is done when the people, they're tuned with my work of art. And in 1969, on way to Australia, we stopped in Japan. And since 1969, we have so many lectures, like now, so many exhibitions, so many collectors, museum, and we have relation with Japan. The same thing. I'm not German. I have my first personal exhibition in Germany in 1961. I was not speaking German, but since 1961, I have so many collectors in Germany, so many museums in Germany, and of course, I did projects. I'm not Swiss. We have so many Swiss collectors. I'm not Italian. I have so many Italian collectors. This is very natural, and the people, Jeanne-Claude was much more straightforward. Some people, when approach us, they tell, but why don't come to my country to do a project? Jeanne-Claude asked him, how many works of art of Christo you have? None. You don't like us. This only way to this project is to sell these works of art, and I can build my project. But there's no reason to go to places who have no any relation to my work. This is why. Simply like that. At my age, I can say much more of that because I have not too much time, and I would do only when the people like my art.
Hello. You were recently working on a project called Over the River, and I'm wondering what the status of that is.
The question is about Over the River. I make a statement, and we don't change that value. I don't like to discuss that. You know very well what is the story of Over the River. Thank you.
Other question? Yes. I do have a question, but I wanted to say first, since other people have seen the gates and they've seen the piers, I had the great good fortune to see the running fence when I was the age of these students, and it was probably the most important aesthetic experience I had ever. It was amazing, and I remember it vividly. It's incredible. So, but my question for you is, at what point when you conceive your project, do you worry about or think about if it is feasible, if it can be done, and if there are projects you have in your head that you have not been able to realize, not because you didn't get permission, but because technologically, they are not. Do you have many more projects than it is possible to build? No. When do you worry about the building part?
The question is they are not generic wonders, this project, or electronics. They're very simple manual things. Very simple. They're extremely ordinary. But that is very difficult to do it. Simple. It's very difficult to do it. But they're not complicated like that. I need to involve some technological invention, etc. And this is why still today, we never think of something cannot be done. We always, because we know they're very naturally, very ordinary. The floating pier was complicated, but was extremely clever engineer, because we have a great people help us to do that. But it was not something like going to the moon or some complicated things. They are very, very mechanical, but that is the most difficult part, to find team, and we have a floating pier, we need to fire some engineers because they was not doing the way that would happen. You know, this is not easy, but we know that can be done. It's the most difficult part. And you need to listen to advice, you need to think, you need to have a luck to connect these people. There are many, many things, but we never do something who is imposters. No complicated, impossible. It looked impossible, but in the end it was very simple.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm wondering if your work with material has always been on an architectural scale, or did you first have this concept or desire to work with fabric on a smaller scale before moving on to architectural scales?
Many works I did very young, make a sculpture with fabric. They packages object, very like room-sized works. I did. They're in the late 50s, early 60s. There are many, like even today I do drawing sketches on a smaller scale. They are not only, but really the first proposal to Republic building in 1961 tried to be a parliament, but we never succeeded to get a parliament. Finally, we were up naturally a museum in Bern, Kunsthalle in Bern, Switzerland. But at the end, we were up a parliament, the real parliament, many years later. But really, I still do a lot of small size work, and they are all part of all the story of each project, or early works of art, the objects, many. No more question? No.
Last one. You talked about your work as being sculptural, a kind of installation, and that you don't really invite the people, but they come. They fill Central Park, and so I was on that train to go to Lago Iseo, and we stood in line half the day in the sun, and there was a crush of, what is it, do you think, about your installations that create a human experience that people come by the millions to have this time with your work?
I do not know, but you know, no, I can tell you, this is we always say, once in a lifetime, and never again. That is the most important thing. We never do the same things again. Never, never. And of course, in that banalized world of repetitious things, from Walt Disney to Olympic Games to everything, all blockbuster things again, the same. This project is unique. And we have a groupie coming in this project who is not art lover, who people like to be present, something never happen again. And beyond that is art project. And like every human is unique. We're unique in the world. And today we try to banalize ourselves that we're all the same. The same way we like to be present in something happened this precious few days, you see it, and we'll be gone forever. Okay.
Thank you so much for being here today and for your inspiring words for our students. I have one last question. Do you have a favorite work of yours?
Madame, one moment. That is the question Jeanne-Claude answered. Madame, how many children you have? 3. Who is your favorite child? You know. You know that you should see this project is like a slice of our life. They happen at a particular moment of our life. I always love to return to the site of the project because you cannot. I remember the last time I was with Jean-Claude in Australia in 2007, and we'd see this Australia coast, the surf, the rocks, the sharks. I dislocated my shoulder wrapping the boulders. And of course, was looking now, I think we were totally mad, absolutely crazy to try to do that, but we were younger and we did it. That's all. Other questions? Thank you. Thank you.